The gunshot echoed through the empty street as Monique Williams dropped to the floor of her living room, her coffee mug shattering against the hardwood. She pressed her body flat, heart slamming against her ribs, and crawled toward the window. Another shot rang out somewhere in the distance, followed by the screech of tires. Then she heard it, a child crying. Monique's nursing instincts overrode her fear. She grabbed her phone and crept to the front door, peering through the peephole. The Atlanta night was dark and still, but under the flickering streetlight at the edge of her property, she saw them, a tall Asian man stumbling up her driveway, a small girl clutched against his chest. Blood soaked through his white shirt, spreading like a dark flower across his shoulder. "Please," he called out, his voice ragged with pain. "Please help us. My daughter, she's sick." Every rational part of Monique's brain screamed at her to call 911 and stay inside. This was how black women ended up on the evening news. This was how people got killed. But the child's cries cut through her fear like a knife through butter. She unlocked the door. "Get inside, now," she commanded, scanning the street for threats. The man staggered through the doorway, nearly collapsing against her. Up close, Monique could see the girl's face, flushed and sweating, her breathing shallow and labored. The fever was obvious even without touching her. "Put her on the couch," Monique ordered, already switching into nurse mode. "How long has she been sick?" "For days," the man gasped, pressing his hand against his bleeding shoulder. "Maybe 5. I couldn't take her to a hospital. They're watching all of them." Monique froze, her hands hovering over the child. "Who's watching the hospitals?" The man's dark eyes met hers, and in them she saw something that made her stomach drop, the cold, calculated gaze of a predator who had somehow become prey. "People who want us dead," he said simply. "If you're already hooked on this story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling me if you would have opened that door." Monique had two choices. She could throw this man and his daughter back into the street and pretend none of this had ever happened. Or she could do what she had been trained to do, what she had sworn an oath to do, and save lives, no matter whose lives they were. She looked at the little girl, who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Innocent. Helpless. Burning up with fever. "Lord, give me strength," Monique muttered under her breath. Then she turned to the man. "Sit down before you bleed out on my floor. I need to check your daughter first, then I'll deal with that shoulder." The man nodded, lowering himself into a chair with a grunt of pain. His eyes never left his daughter's face. Monique pressed her hand to the girl's forehead. The fever was dangerously high, at least 104, maybe higher. She grabbed her medical bag from the hallway closet, thankful that years of working the night shift at Grady Memorial had taught her to always be prepared. "What's her name?" Monique asked, pulling out her thermometer. "Sue Min," the man replied, his voice softening. "Her name is Sue Min." "Sue Min, baby, can you hear me?" Monique spoke gently, brushing the girl's damp hair from her face. "My name is Monique. I'm a nurse. I'm going to help you feel better, okay?" The girl's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. She mumbled something in Korean, then looked around frantically until she spotted her father. "Appa," she whimpered. "Appa, it hurts." The man was at her side instantly, grasping her small hand in his blood-stained one. He spoke to her in rapid Korean, his voice tender and reassuring. Monique didn't understand the words, but she recognized the tone. It was the same tone she had heard from countless parents in the emergency room, the desperate, loving plea of someone willing to trade their own life for their child's. "Her temperature is 104.6, Monique announced, frowning at the thermometer. "She has severe pneumonia. She needs 4 antibiotics, fluids, and constant monitoring. She needs a hospital." "No hospitals," the man said firmly. "I already told you." "I heard what you told me," Monique cut him off. "But I'm telling you that without proper treatment, your daughter could die. Do you understand that?" She could die. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and terrible. The man closed his eyes, and for a moment, the mask of control slipped. Monique saw the terror beneath, the raw, primal fear of a parent facing the unthinkable. "If I take her to a hospital, they will find us," he said quietly. "And if they find us, they will kill her. They will kill her slowly, in front of me, to make me suffer. Then they will kill me. That is not a possibility. That is a certainty." Monique's blood ran cold. "Who are you? What did you do?" The man opened his eyes and met her gaze. "My name is Park Jin-Ho. I am the head of the Yangam Syndicate in Seoul, South Korea. In your country, you would call me a crime boss. A mafia boss." Monique took a step back, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. "I am not going to hurt you," Jin-Ho said quickly. "I have no reason to hurt you. You have done nothing to me except show kindness when you had every reason to turn us away. But I understand if you want us to leave. I understand if you want to call the police. I will not stop you. I only ask that you wait until Soo-min is stable. Please. I am begging you." Monique looked at the phone in her hand, then at the little girl on her couch. Soo-min had fallen into a fitful sleep, her small chest rising and falling with labored breaths. "You got a lot of nerve," Monique said slowly, "coming into my house, bleeding on my furniture, and telling me you're some kind of criminal mastermind. I know. You could have brought a whole mess of trouble to my doorstep. People could come here looking for you. They could hurt me. Yes. And you expect me to just help you anyway? Because you asked nicely?" Jin-Ho shook his head. "I don't expect anything. I am hoping. There is a difference." Monique stared at him for a long moment. Then she let out a heavy sigh and put her phone down. "I must be out of my damn mind," she muttered, reaching for her medical bag again. "Take off your shirt. Let me see that shoulder." The bullet had gone clean through, which was the only piece of good news Monique had received all night. She cleaned the wound, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, and stitched him up with supplies from her emergency kit. Jin-Ho sat perfectly still through the entire process, not even flinching when the needle pierced his skin. "You've been shot before," Monique observed. "Many times. And you're still alive. I am difficult to kill." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "My enemies find it frustrating." Despite herself, Monique felt her lips twitch. "I bet they do." She finished bandaging his shoulder and turned her attention back to Soo-min. The girl needed 4 antibiotics, but Monique didn't have the supplies at home. She would have to go to the hospital and get them, which meant leaving a mafia boss alone in her house with access to everything she owned. "I need to get medicine," she told Jin-Ho. "The hospital is 20 minutes away. I'll be back in under an hour. Don't answer the door. Don't touch anything. And if you try anything stupid while I'm gone, I swear to God I will make you regret it." Jin-Ho nodded solemnly. "I give you my word. No harm will come to your home or your possessions." "Your word," Monique repeated skeptically. "The word of a crime boss." "The word of a father," Jin-Ho corrected quietly. "That is worth more than anything else I could offer." Monique grabbed her keys and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the strange scene in her living room, the unconscious child, the wounded gangster, the blood staining her grandmother's couch. "You better be here when I get back," she said. "Both of you." The next few hours were the longest of Monique's life. She returned from the hospital with 4 supplies, antibiotics, and enough fluids to hydrate a small army. She set up a makeshift treatment station in her living room, monitoring Soo-min's vitals every 15 minutes and adjusting her medication as needed. Jin-Ho watched her work with something like awe in his eyes. "You're very good at this," he said during one of the quiet moments. "I've been a nurse for 12 years, Monique replied without looking up. "Started at 18, right out of high school. Worked my way through nursing school while pulling double shifts at a community clinic. I've seen things that would make your Mafia business look like a Sunday picnic. I don't doubt it. Monique finally met his gaze. So how does a Korean crime boss end up bleeding on my lawn in the middle of Atlanta? Jin-Ho was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. There was a betrayal. My second in command, a man named Lee Sung-ho, decided he wanted my position. He staged a coup while I was traveling with Soo-min, killed my most loyal men. Turned the others against me with lies and bribes. And the shooting tonight? His men tracked us here. I thought we had lost them in Los Angeles, but I was wrong. They caught up to us at a gas station. I managed to escape, but... He gestured to his shoulder. Why bring your daughter with you? Monique asked. Wouldn't she be safer somewhere else? With family or something? Jin-Ho's expression darkened. Her mother died giving birth to her. I have no other family. And Sung-ho made it very clear that Soo-min was a target. He wanted to wipe out my entire bloodline. Leaving her behind was never an option. Monique absorbed this information in silence. She thought about her own life, the double shifts, the empty apartment, the relationships that never seemed to work out because she was always too busy saving other people's lives to build one of her own. She's lucky to have you, Monique said finally. A lot of fathers would have abandoned her to save themselves. Then they don't deserve to be called fathers. Just then, Soo-min stirred on the couch. Her eyes opened slowly, focusing on Monique with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Hi there, baby girl, Monique said softly, moving to her side. How are you feeling? Soo-min blinked, then looked at her father and said something in Korean. Jin-Ho responded, and Soo-min turned back to Monique. Thank you, the little girl said in careful English. For helping me. Monique felt her heart crack open. You're welcome, sweetheart. Now you just rest, okay? You're going to be just fine. Over the next 3 days, Monique's house transformed into an unlikely sanctuary. She called in sick to work, something she had never done in 12 years. She cooked meals that Soo-min could keep down, chicken soup, rice porridge, toast with honey. She taught the little girl how to braid hair and watched in amazement as Soo-min's tiny fingers practiced the technique on a doll Monique had bought at the corner store. Jin-Ho remained vigilant, constantly checking the windows and doors, but as his shoulder healed and his daughter improved, something in him began to relax. He told Monique stories about Seoul, about his childhood growing up poor and hungry, about the choices that had led him down a dark path. I never wanted this life, he admitted one evening, after Soo-min had fallen asleep. I wanted to be a teacher. Can you believe that? I wanted to teach literature to high school students. What happened? Monique asked, genuinely curious. My father happened. He was a low-level enforcer for the Yonggam syndicate. When he was killed by a rival gang, I was 16 years old. I had to choose, join the syndicate and avenge his death, or watch my mother starve because she had no way to support us. So you joined. So I joined. And I discovered I was very good at violence. Too good. I rose through the ranks faster than anyone expected. By the time I was 25, I was running my own crew. By 30, I was the boss. He paused, staring at his hands. I have done terrible things, Monique. Things I can never take back. Things that would make you throw me out of this house if you knew. Monique considered this. Maybe. But I've seen you with that little girl. I've seen the way you look at her, the way you talk to her. Whatever else you are, you're a good father. That counts for something. Jin-Ho looked up, his eyes glistening. Does it? Does it really? I don't know, Monique admitted. I'm not a priest. I can't absolve you of your sins. But I know that people are complicated. We contain multitudes, as the poets say. You can be a criminal and still love your daughter. You can be a killer and still have a heart. On the 5th day, everything went wrong. Monique was in the kitchen making breakfast when Jin-Ho appeared in the doorway, his face pale and his body tense. They found us, he said quietly. There's a van parked across the street. 2 men inside. They've been watching the house for the past hour. Monique's blood turned to ice. What do we do? I need to leave. Draw them away from you and Sumin. If I can get them to follow me. And then what? You get yourself killed? Leave your daughter an orphan? Monique shook her head. No. There has to be another way. There isn't. This is my world, Monique. This is how it works. The strong survive and the weak die, and the only thing that matters is making sure the people you love are protected. That's a load of bull and you know it. Monique grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. You came to me because you needed help. Now I'm telling you, let me help. All the way. Jin-Ho stared at her. You don't know what you're offering. Then tell me. Tell me what we're up against, and let me decide. For a long moment, Jin-Ho was silent. Then he nodded slowly. Sung-Ho has been tracking us using facial recognition software. He has contacts in airports, hotels, gas stations, anywhere there are cameras. The only reason he hasn't caught us yet is because I've been staying off the grid. But now that they've found this house, they'll call for backup, Monique finished. More men. More guns. Exactly. We have maybe an hour before this street becomes a war zone. Monique's mind raced. She thought about her brother Marcus, who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before coming home and starting a private security company. She thought about her cousin Darnell, who had connections to every side of Atlanta's underground and owed her a favor for saving his son's life 2 years ago. I know people, she said slowly. People who can help. Jin-Ho's eyes narrowed. What kind of people? The kind of people who know how to handle situations like this. My brother runs a security firm, all ex-military. And my cousin, let's just say he moves in circles that aren't exactly legal. You would call on criminals to help a criminal? I would call on family to help protect an innocent child. There's a difference. 3 hours later, Monique's quiet suburban street looked like something out of an action movie. Marcus had arrived with 4 of his men, all of them armed and ready for trouble. Darnell had brought 6 more from his crew, hard-faced men who asked no questions and followed orders without hesitation. You sure about this, Mo? Marcus asked, checking his weapon. This ain't some neighborhood dispute. These are international gangsters we're talking about. I'm sure, Monique replied. That little girl in there didn't ask for any of this. She's just a kid who got caught up in grown folks' business. And I'll be damned if I let her die because I was too scared to do something. Marcus looked at his sister for a long moment, then nodded. All right then. Let's do this. The Korean assassins never saw it coming. They had expected to take out a wounded crime boss and his sick daughter. Instead, they found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by a coalition of Atlanta's finest, veterans, street soldiers, and one very determined nurse. The battle was brief but brutal. Gunfire erupted in the street, shattering windows and sending neighbors diving for cover. Monique stayed inside with Su Min, holding the frightened girl close and whispering reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. It's okay, baby. It's okay. Your daddy's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Jin-Ho moved through the chaos like a demon unleashed. He had armed himself from Darnell's stash, and years of training took over. One by one, the assassins fell. When the smoke cleared, 7 men lay dead in the street, and Jin-Ho stood over the last of them, his chest heaving and his eyes wild. Where is Sung-Ho? He demanded, pressing his boot against the wounded man's throat. Tell me where he's hiding. The assassin laughed, blood bubbling from his lips. You're too late. He's already on his way. He wanted to see you die himself. Said it was personal. Jin-Ho's face hardened. Good. Then I won't have to go looking for him. The next 3 hours were tense. Monique bandaged wounds and coordinated with her brother, while Darnell's men set up a perimeter around the house. Su Min had finally fallen asleep again, exhausted by the terror of the day. You should go, Jin-Ho said quietly, appearing at Monique's side. Take Su-min and leave. Marcus can get you somewhere safe. When Sung-Ho arrives, this house will become a tomb. Monique turned to face him. I've been running from things my whole life. Running from my daddy's drinking. Running from relationships that scared me. Running from anything that might actually mean something. I'm tired of running, Jin-Ho. I'm staying. Why? I'm nothing to you. We're strangers. You were strangers, Monique corrected. But you've been living in my house for 5 days. I've taken care of your daughter. I've heard your stories. I've seen who you are when you're not trying to be a crime boss. And I think. She paused, searching for the right words. I think you deserve a chance to be something different. Jin-Ho stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then, slowly, he reached out and took her hand. When this is over, he said, if we survive this night, I want to start again. I want to be the man my daughter deserves. The man. He hesitated. The man you make me believe I could be. Then you better not die on me, Monique replied, squeezing his hand. Because I'm going to hold you to that. Sung-Ho arrived just after midnight, rolling up to the house in a black SUV with a dozen men behind him. He stepped out into the street, supremely confident, a snake who had come to swallow his prey whole. Jin-Ho, he called out, his voice echoing through the quiet neighborhood. I know you're in there. Come out and face me like a man. Or would you prefer I burn the house down with everyone inside? Jin-Ho emerged from the front door, unarmed and alone. But behind him, hidden in the shadows, Monique's army waited. Sung-Ho, Jin-Ho said calmly. You look well for a dead man. Sung-Ho laughed. Still arrogant, even now. I always admired that about you, you know. That unshakable confidence. It's what made you a great leader. But it's also what made you blind to my ambition. I saw your ambition. I just thought you were smart enough to wait until I died of old age. Why wait when I can take what I want now? Sung-Ho spread his arms. Look around you, old friend. I have an army. You have nothing. Your daughter is sick. Your men are dead. And that woman you've been hiding with, she'll make a lovely addition to my collection after I'm finished with you. Something cold and deadly flickered in Jin-Ho's eyes. You shouldn't have said that. Oh. And why not? Because now I'm going to make your death much more painful than I originally planned. The signal was subtle, a slight nod of Jin-Ho's head, but it was enough. Marcus and his men opened fire from the rooftops. Darnell's crew burst from hiding positions on either side of the street. Sung-Ho's army, caught completely off guard, scattered in panic. Jin-Ho moved with lethal precision, cutting through his enemies like a blade through paper. He had one target and one target only, the man who had tried to take everything from him. Sung-Ho was fast, but Jin-Ho was faster. They clashed in the middle of the street, fists and blades flashing in the moonlight. Blood splattered the pavement. Bones cracked. And finally, with one devastating blow, Jin-Ho brought his enemy down. Wait, Sung-Ho gasped, crawling backward. We can make a deal. I have money. Power. I can give you. You poisoned my daughter, Jin-Ho said, his voice ice cold. In Shanghai. You had someone slip something into her food. The fever, the sickness, it wasn't natural. You tried to murder a child. Sung-Ho's eyes widened with fear. How did you? She told me. In her delirium, she kept talking about a nice man who gave her candy at the hotel. Candy that made her feel funny. Jin-Ho stepped closer. You used my daughter to weaken me. To make me desperate. And for that, there is no deal. There is no mercy. There is only this. The blade fell. Monique watched from the window as Jin-Ho stood over his enemy's body, his shoulders heaving with exhaustion. Then he turned and walked back toward the house, back toward her, back toward his daughter. The war was over. The cleanup took days. Bodies were disposed of, evidence was erased, and a complex series of bribes ensured that the official story would be nothing more than a gang dispute that had spilled into a residential area. No one would ever connect it to the Korean Mafia or the quiet nurse who lived at 447 Oakwood Drive. Jin-Ho spent long hours on the phone, consolidating power and establishing a new order back in Seoul. With Sung-ho dead and his forces decimated, the remaining members of the Yonggam syndicate had no choice but to accept Jin-Ho's leadership once again. But something had changed. "I'm stepping back," Jin-Ho announced one evening, as Soo-min played with her dolls on the living room floor. "I've appointed a council to run the day-to-day operations. The legitimate businesses will be my focus now: real estate, technology, imports. Things Soo-min can be proud of." Monique raised an eyebrow. "You think it's that easy? Just walk away from a life of crime? Easy? No. Possible? I have to believe so." He moved closer to her, his dark eyes intense. "Monique, you saved my daughter's life. You risked everything for strangers. You showed me that there is still good in this world, still people who act with courage and compassion even when they have every reason to turn away." "I was just doing my job," Monique said, suddenly uncomfortable under his gaze. "No. You were doing much more than that. And I was wondering." He paused, gathering his courage. "I was wondering if you would consider coming to Seoul. With us." Monique's heart stopped. "What? Soo-min adores you. She asks about you constantly. And I..." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I find that I am not ready to say goodbye to you. I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a week. But sometimes the most important people enter our lives in the most unexpected ways." Monique looked down at their intertwined hands, then up at his face. She thought about her life in Atlanta, the double shifts, the lonely apartment, the years of putting everyone else's needs before her own. "I have a job," she said weakly. "Responsibilities. You could have a job in Seoul. There are hospitals there that would be lucky to have someone with your skills. Or you could work in private practice, set your own hours, have time to actually live your life. I don't speak Korean. Soo-min is learning English. You could learn together." Monique laughed despite herself. "You have an answer for everything, don't you? Only for the things that matter." Jin-Ho squeezed her hand. "I'm not asking you to commit to anything permanent. I'm just asking you to take a chance. To see if what we have could become something real. Something lasting." Before Monique could respond, Soo-min appeared at their side, tugging on Monique's sleeve. "Are you going to come live with us?" the little girl asked hopefully. "Please. I want you to be my friend forever." Monique looked at Soo-min's earnest face, then at Jin-Ho's hopeful eyes. She thought about everything she had been through in the past week, the fear, the danger, the violence. But also the connection. The purpose. The feeling of being needed by people who saw her, really saw her, for who she was. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Jin-Ho smiled. "That's all I ask. If this story touched you, please smash that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Leave a comment telling me your favorite part of this story. Now let's see how it ends." 6 weeks later, Monique stepped off a plane at Incheon International Airport, her 2 suitcases packed with everything she owned and her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and excitement. She had quit her job at Grady Memorial. She had sublet her apartment to her cousin. She had said goodbye to Marcus and her mother and everyone she loved, promising to video call every week. And now she was here, halfway around the world, starting a new life with a man she had known for less than 2 months. Soo-min spotted her first, breaking away from her father and sprinting across the arrivals hall with a squeal of joy. "Monique! Monique! You came! You really came!" Monique scooped the little girl into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time. Of course I came, baby girl. I promised, didn't I? Jin-Ho approached more slowly, his face carefully controlled but his eyes betraying his happiness. You actually did it. You sound surprised. I am. People make promises all the time. They rarely keep them. Monique set Sumin down and stepped closer to Jin-Ho. I'm not people. I'm Monique Williams from Atlanta, Georgia. And when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Jin-Ho smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine, and pulled her into his arms. Welcome to Seoul, Monique Williams from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for having me, Park Jin-Ho from the Korean Mafia. They both laughed, and Sumin danced around them, singing a Korean song she had learned especially for the occasion. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be cultural clashes and language barriers. There would be enemies who hadn't gotten the message that Jin-Ho was out of the game. There would be moments when Monique wondered what on earth she had been thinking, giving up her entire life for a man she barely knew. But there would also be love. There would be family. There would be a little girl who called her Auntie Mo, and a man who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. As they walked out of the airport together, Sumin holding Monique's hand on one side and Jin-Ho's on the other, Monique realized something important. She had spent her whole life saving other people. Healing their wounds. Easing their pain. But she had never let anyone save her. Until now. And it felt like coming home. That's the story of how an African-American nurse from Atlanta sheltered a strange man and his sick daughter, not knowing he was a Korean mafia boss, and found love in the most unlikely place. Life has a funny way of surprising us. The people we least expect become the people we need most. The chances we're most afraid to take turn out to be the ones that change everything. You never know who might be waiting on the other side. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Hit the like button to let me know you enjoyed this video. And drop a comment below telling me, would you have opened the door for Jin-Ho and Sumin?